I recently made a video entitled "One Tip for Every Country in Geoguessr." I highly recommend watching this if you haven't already. But in this video, we will be going over every other location that's currently in Geoguessr that's not a country and is in fact a territory, such as Christmas Island, Gibraltar, Guam, and a whole bunch more today. So let's just get right into it. What do you guys say? I actually may give more than one tip for some of these because there's not many territories in the game. There's a lot more countries for sure. Definitely a lot more countries. But we're starting off here with the U.S. Virgin Islands, which consists of 3 islands here. We have the biggest one down here, which is St. Croix. We have this one right here, which is St. Thomas. And we have this one here, which is St. John. St. Thomas is the most populated one, it seems. Second to St. Croix, which is, of course, the biggest. St. John, not very populated. It's kind of just like a big forest, I would say. There's a couple of unique cars to the U.S. Virgin Islands. We have these pickup trucks that are very common. You'll get them in either red or white. There's a couple of different white cars, but the red car here is only found on St. Croix, the big island down south. So if you see this red car, this is the only island that you'll find it on. U.S. Virgin Islands is one of 2 locations currently in the game of Geoguessr that drives on the left in North America. So the U.S. Virgin Islands and also Bermuda up here, which we will talk about in a little bit. Those are the 2 places that drive on the left when you're in these regions of the world. Another U.S. territory, we have Puerto Rico here, which is an island in the Caribbean Sea. And let's take a look at the coverage here in Puerto Rico. As you can see, it is very much heavily dense near San Juan, a little bit here near Ponce, but anywhere else it's kind of just scattered and vague. Of course, there is coverage all throughout the country, but as you can see, it is definitely more dense around San Juan. There's also a lot of mountains throughout the country as well. As you can see here, it's pretty much mountainous terrain all throughout the middle and eastern part here. So if you see mountains to the north, you're probably not going to be in San Juan. You probably will be down here in Ponce or potentially Caguas, which are the 3 biggest cities here. And if you see them in the south, then you're probably going to be in either San Juan or Caguas. An easy way to identify Puerto Rico, very easy, is looking at the top front right of the car. As you can see, there's a pretty long antenna. This is only found in 3 locations in the world, and we are going to be talking about all 3 of those locations coming up. The next location is the Northern Mariana Islands, which is one of the locations with the long antenna. There are 3 main islands that you might find coverage on. It's this one right here. This is the big one with Saipan. Now, this is the only one that has street view coverage. You will see a lot of trekkers. There's like a couple on Tinian there, and there's quite a bit down here on Sinapalu. So keep in mind, these are the 3 main islands, but the top one here where it says Northern Mariana Islands right here labeled is where the street view coverage is located. So if you are on the road, you're definitely going to be on this island here. And of course, when you're on the street, you will see this long antenna on the right side, just like in Puerto Rico. Guam is the 3rd and final place that uses this antenna. It is just south of the Northern Mariana Islands out here in the Pacific Ocean. And so it's pretty isolated out here, but it's only 1 island. The entire island has coverage, and it does have the antenna as stated previously, but there is a difference because if you look to the back left, you will see a little bit of roof rack sticking out. This is only seen in Guam. So if you do see this, you're definitely going to be in Guam, not Puerto Rico or Northern Mariana Islands. Another American territory here today is just the American Samoa, which consists of these islands right here. I believe there's technically 4. We have the big island here, which has the capital of, I believe it's called Pago Pago. And we also have these islands over here. This is a fairly large one, but there's not much coverage. As you can see, just 1 road on both of these. And this one is technically 2 with a bridge in the middle here, 2 islands, but they all have coverage, very little, and they all have different Google cars. So it is very useful to learn the different cars that drive on each island. The final American territory today is the Midway Islands, which is a couple of islands that are out west of Hawaii. And as you can see, it is fairly flat. It's actually in a atoll, I think, so it's very flat and sandy. But the easiest way to identify Midway Islands is just looking around at all of these birds. There is a million birds here. They're always around. I believe they're albatrosses, but I could be wrong about that. But if you see all these birds just sitting around, it's a pretty sure and safe bet you will be on Midway Island. Now we move to the Australian territories. The first one here is Christmas Island, which has a unique Google car with a flatbed in the back. You can see these very distinct corners on both sides. This is the Christmas Island car. An easy way to tell that you are here is just by looking at the back here, but also you will see a lot of signs that talk about the robber crabs that are almost everywhere. Now you won't see them too much like driving around, but you might see them in some trekker coverage. But yeah, you will see a whole bunch of signs. There's one here, and there's also one over here if we move that just says slow down, drive around the crabs here. It kind of looks a bit scary, but that is the sign for the crabs. The other Australian territory is the Cocos Island. This is just to the west of Christmas Island, and it has a very similar back of the car with these sort of square corners, but it also has this thing in the front, which is a big, well, I don't really know what it is, but it's in the front right of the car. The Christmas Island car will never have this, so and the Cocos one will. So keep in mind, it looks very similar. It's very flat, sandy. You know, this has this very short green and somewhat brown grass. But this is the key difference on Coco Island. All right, a part of the Netherlands here, the only one on the list, we have Curaçao, which is a beautiful island in the Caribbean Sea, kind of almost by Venezuela. And this island has, first of all, a unique Google car that has a roof rack, this sort of front here, and what can really identify it for you is this white sticker here, which is only found in Curaçao here on the roof rack. So if you see this white sticker, gonna want to go Curaçao, but if you don't want to look at Google cars because that's kind of lame, I don't know, maybe you don't like that, then just look at all of these cactuses. These cacti are all over the island. I mean, seriously, they are all over. If you are on Curaçao, you will most likely see one of these cactuses near you, and so pretty good clue that you are on the island of Curaçao. We now have our first of many French territories here in Saint-Pierre and Miquelon. I think is how you say it in French. I'm not exactly sure. It's a very small 2-island little territory, and there's not much coverage at all, but there is a little bit of street view coverage. It's very old. I guess it's not that old. 2016 was when this was created. It's got a unique car. It has like a little gas can on it, and there might be a couple of other cars as well. I'm not entirely sure because this is a very rare place that you don't see very often, but it does look a little bit like France. The architecture, the poles here look very French. And I believe even the license plates have the old yellow in the back French license plates. So well, this one over here does, so does that one, but this one is not for some reason. But yeah, I guess it doesn't look like France at all if you look at the sort of the landscape, but I guess everything else here kind of does, and of course they do speak French here, so it is very rare. You won't see it too often, but here's just a couple things to look out for. And if we go back to the map, I'll show you kind of where it is. It's just really these two places right here. Miquelon is a very uninhabited place. I mean, there's not much here. There's only one really settlement up here. That's where I just was. And then there's a bigger settlement down here on Saint-Pierre. It's a bit bigger, and you're more likely to run into coverage down here, I would suppose. Another French territory, we have Reunion Island. This is an island near Madagascar in the Indian Ocean, and it looks like, everything looks like France except for the landscape, the nature. We have these French signs. Obviously they speak French here as well. You even have French license plates. There's the blue strip, so you're like, oh, you have a blue strip, it might be in Europe, and you're looking around and this does not look like Europe with these mountains and just the green and the fog. It's just obviously not Europe. But yes, an easy way to identify Reunion Island is, of course, the French, but also the black tape here on the right back of the roof rack. Now, if you saw my other video on Ghana, then you know that the tape is right here on the front right. Okay, so it's all about tape placement. Reunion Island is in the back right. Ghana tape is on the front right. So don't get those two confused. It's very easy to get confused. But yeah, other than that, pretty easy to get Reunion Island correct. And it is right here in the Indian Ocean. If you zoom out here, hopefully it loads, and does, kind of right by Madagascar here. Reunion Island, nice. Now we enter another French territory of Martinique in the Caribbean Ocean. Now this is such a rare place that you'll probably never go, honestly. I don't think I've ever run into Martinique in my times playing Geoguessr. There are 3 possible trekker options, and we're gonna go through all of them here today. The first one is just this dense sort of jungle coverage, which is, you know, there's no really clues to know that you're here unless you've watched this video, of course. So kind of showing you where this is. If we zoom out, it's just right here on the island, in the top of the island here. And of course, Martinique, located in the Caribbean here. And if we zoom in to where we just were, it's not loading. Okay, here we go. It's kind of by it's right down here by the Cascade Absalon. So this little kind of circle right here is where you want to go, and you pop in, and it's the official Google coverage. And wow, look at that view. The number 2 location here in Martinique is kind of a bit different, but it's similar. It's a lot more open. You can see what's going on. I'm not really sure what this is, but It seems to be like kind of like a resort maybe. As I said, I'm not entirely sure, but it kind of looks like this. You got these palm trees. There are some roads and stuff, and there's a couple ponds or you know, small lakes here, and that would be located right down here, the habitation Clement. I was trying to speak French there. Right to the south of Le Francois. Sorry if I don't know my French. But yeah, that's where the second location is. And the third location is along an entire coastline. And you might see some people walking with you here. But the thing is, you probably will be able to see the water a little bit. I don't know if you can see it everywhere on the trail, but it's definitely pretty close because it actually runs the length of the very far south of the island here. So it's from St. Anne. It kind of just runs down this beach here. If we can pop the guy in, it's this trail here that kind of just runs along the coast through the beach, and it ends somewhere down here. I think maybe right here or something like that. That is the third and final trucker location. There's no Google car here at all. It's just you're on foot. But that's Martinique for you. All right, we're on to Norway. Way up here in the Arctic Circle. I mean, it doesn't get further north than this, really. But there's not much coverage here, as you can see. There's no streets here. Well, there's a couple. There's a couple of street view locations here. They do have unique cars and stuff that you can learn. It's also a lot of boat trekkers. I mean, Svalbard has a ton of boat trekkers. We can just pop in right here, and I'm assuming we'll be taken to one. And yes, we do. So we have the Norway flag here, and we are in Svalbard. So this is what it kind of looks like. You'll have a lot of these boat trekkers here. As I said, there are a couple of roads, but yeah, Svalbard is pretty rare to get as well. All right, on to Denmark now. We have the Faroe Islands, which is a territory of Denmark, and it looks very, very unique. I mean, there are not many places. Actually, I'm just gonna say it. There's nowhere on earth that looks like the Faroe Islands. I mean, look at these hills. You have these pristinely clean rivers running through. That's like just straight off the mountains here. Waterfalls coming down. We have a lonely house over there in the middle of this valley. Kind of crazy. It's pretty easy to identify, honestly, just because there's a car with a roof rack. Pretty easy to tell that you are in the Faroe Islands if you have this combination of a roof rack car with these sort of landscapes. You're definitely going to be in the Faroe Islands. Pretty identifiable. And now we move on to another Denmark territory. This one being way bigger than Denmark itself. Greenland, which, as you can see, is basically just ice and snow. That's not really my tip, but it is a good tip because there's nothing in the middle of Greenland. Never ever guess really in the middle of Greenland. All of the cities are going to be on the coast, most of them on the west coast, but there are a couple on the east coast as well. Greenland is one of the hardest countries to learn because there are just so many trekker and unique Google cars that you just have to memorize really, or else you're not going to get the answers correct. The capital city, Nuuk, is by far the most common place that you'll be. It's pretty decent size. We can drop in and take a look at the Google car just to see what's kind of going on. Hopefully it takes us to it, and it does. And the Google car has no roof rack, so if you compare that to the Faroe Islands, which does, you know, you should be able to get this. And this is Nuuk. It's you know, decent size. It's not like a tiny little place, but it certainly isn't very built up. And yeah, this is Greenland, and you know, it's a bit of a learning process that I even haven't learned myself, Greenland, because there's just so much to learn here. It's time for the territories of Britain. I know, we were gonna have to get there eventually, and we're gonna start off with the Isle of Man. Now, the Isle of Man is located in between the mainland of Great Britain and Ireland Island, but you'll notice we do have some different license plates on the Isle of Man than we do on mainland UK. And that is because there's a red strip. There's still yellow on the back, but there is a red strip on the left side, and it's also on the front as well with just the white on the front. And we have this red strip. Also, I don't know if there's any updated coverage, but I do know that it's all Generation 2 on the Isle of Man. So if you have any other generation, probably not going to be here. So you have the Isle of Man location just kind of right in the middle of, what is this, the Irish Sea. So yeah, there it is. Down here we have Guernsey and Jersey. Now Guernsey actually does not have any street view coverage, just some photospheres. So don't worry about Guernsey. But Jersey will definitely show up quite, you know, I wouldn't say quite often, but it does show up from time to time. And as you can see, there's coverage all over the island. Now, the difference is between this and the Isle of Man, for example, and the entirety of the UK is that it's pretty close to France. And as a result, they speak a language that's not quite French, but it's very, very similar to French. I don't know what it's called, but as you can see from the names, we have Les, you know, all of these French-like names here. I mean, Awe. It's not, there's definitely some English being spoken here, especially like in St. Helier, but there's a lot of French-like language as well. So if you think you're in the UK, but there's French, this is probably the best option for you. We have now taken a trip to the southern tip of Spain, but we're still in the UK somehow. A territory of Britain, of course, and we are in Gibraltar. Now, Gibraltar is somewhat identifiable because it has a pretty unique antenna in the back with this silver tip that I don't believe is really found anywhere else. So it's pretty unique to Gibraltar. And we also do have the unique UK plates. Well, I wouldn't say they're unique, but they do have yellow in the back. And lots of English speaking here. Lots of English, as you can see, captain's cabin. You know, for being in the very south of Spain, there doesn't seem to be much Spanish being spoken here. So that's something to definitely keep in mind when you're making your guesses. I did mention that Bermuda was the only other place that's currently in Geoguessr that drives on the left when you're in the Caribbean, joining the US Virgin Islands. So that is Bermuda, the other option. Now, Bermuda is pretty recognizable because it is super skinny and long. It's so likely that you will be able to see the coast while you're driving around almost anywhere, unless you're like right here on Middle Road, like right in the middle. And you know, that's very good because if you do drop in, hopefully we get official coverage here. We might not. Okay, we didn't, but it's fine. The architecture is very vibrant. You have very colorful houses and white roofs. There are some water boat trekker coverage that you might see, and so if you look on land and you see these type of roofs and architecture, it's probably gonna be Bermuda. But the color of the water is also extremely identifiable, and I wish we had some better quality coverage here. I'll find that real quick. Okay, so here we go. We have found some better quality. First of all, here's the Google car. No roof rack, but you can definitely see the roof of the car. So that's another tip for you. But the water is just stunningly beautiful and bright blue, which is a lot different than other places in the world. Definitely worth learning about. And because I love Bermuda so much, I'll give some other clues. First of all, there's just so many bays. We have this one, of course. We have this one. We have this one. We have this one over here. We have others like over here. I mean, there's just so many bays in Bermuda. So if you see like a lot of these just water with land surrounding, could be a good clue that you are in Bermuda as well, because that is pretty much the entirety of the territory. Hong Kong is technically a special administrative region of China, not its own country, and I guess you wouldn't classify that as a territory either. But really, you're gonna get Hong Kong confused mostly with neighboring Macau, which we'll talk about next, but also Taiwan, because the language is very similar. In Hong Kong, however, you will see a lot of English as well. Here we have the Spanish Hotel, which isn't Spanish, it's actually English, interestingly. But you will see a lot of English, but also you will see the local Chinese language. I'm not sure what that's technically called. Another clue is you will see yellow license plates on the back, kind of similar to the UK, but obviously not the same license plate, just the same color. So that is something that you will see. And Hong Kong is just very tall. The buildings are tall, and that can be definitely a good clue that you are in Hong Kong. Macau, on the other hand, has a lot of old footage. This one's from 2008, for example, and we're kind of like right downtown. Macau is not as big. It's a lot rarer to get in game. It's known as the casino capital of the world. So you might see a lot of big casinos like this. Interestingly enough, you also won't see too many yellow license plates. Now, obviously, you will see a couple because it's so close to Hong Kong, like right next to it. So you might see a couple, but they don't really require yellow plates here. And finally, the last territory claimed by multiple countries is Antarctica. And there's really not much going on down here. There's not many roads. I don't think there's any roads, honestly. And there's really not much trekker coverage either. But what there is right near the McMurdo station here, there's a couple of little trekker trails. And there's also some in the mountains kind of right across from it. But there's really not much Antarctica at all. And this is just directly south of New Zealand there. So yeah, that's your Antarctica clue. Pretty rare to find, honestly, anything in Antarctica, but it does exist. I hope you learned something in this video. If you did, make sure you drop a like. I really appreciate that. And let me know if you want a part 2 so I can give you guys some more tips for these countries, or maybe I'll do a part 2 with the one tip in every country video, which might be a bit more useful. But these territories might come in clutch if you ever run into them in any sort of duel or competitive gameplay, because some people may not know some of these clues. So it could be very helpful. Anyways, thanks for watching, everybody. And we'll see you in the next one. See ya.